Coaches in the game, we really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmet's casket is high. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got too many. Tick your tech. Oh man, shit. They got us fucked up. Army, regroup. We pledge always to have that edge. We don't fire warning shots. Competition just dropped. We locked and loaded before lock. Whatever the time, yeah. Do you even correlate?
Being the best requires a willingness to outwork your competition. There's always someone smarter, faster, sharper, more naturally gifted to come around.
Welcome back, DFS Army. It's FantasyFling. We are taking a look back at the Milly Maker, the divisional round, your 4-game main slate, some MME strategy for that, looking at top DFS pros, what they did in their MME for the 4-game slate and also the 2-game slate. So wanted to take a look at that as well because I know a lot of people this time of year loving the just the 2-game slates and because that's what we have going on next week. So let's go ahead and dive into it. So over at Fantasy Labs, the lineup that took down the 4-game main slates, the Milly Maker, Megan Joy. And, you know, it was great to see it because then every single week I look at a lot of the pros and Megan Joy she's very good. I'm assuming it's a girl, Megan. But she's very good. And this year she hasn't done very well in the Milly Maker until the divisional round of the playoffs. So just goes to show consistency. Most weeks she had a negative ROI day in the Milly Maker. And then, you know, we get a couple games into the playoffs and she's able to bank $1 million with this lineup that she had. And what was also really good about it is she had 140 uniques out of 150, which on a 4-game slate was certainly top tier for a lot of the pros that we're going to look at. So congrats to her. And the lineup she had was very contrarian. So 162%, 4-game slate. Awesome. She had Joe Burrow. And one thing that stood out to me in the exposures is she was way under the field on Joe Burrow, but it just goes to show all it takes. We say this all the time. All it takes is that one lineup to really bank a large field GPP. She had 2% exposure to Joe Burrow, and one of those lineups out of the 2% was able to take it down. So good on her. That's awesome. But the top lineup for the Milly Maker, she had it: Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, Hayden Hurst, and then Cincy D. So Burrow +2, Cincy D if you include that. Obviously a full game stack there, and no bringbacks. So certainly how she was able to get contrarian with this lineup was having no bringbacks. There was another stack: Travis Etienne, Christian Kirk, and Travis Kelce as the bringback. And then both CeeDee Lamb and Richie James as one-offs. So what really set the lineup apart, you know, apart from the construction, was you had Hayden Hurst, he was 7%, 162% total ownership, and then 178 points. I believe second place had like 172. So she really crushed it with this lineup, and it was not close. So she had a lot of quarterback +2 and quarterback +3 lineups. And I'm pretty sure she was pretty heavy on Mahomes. Yeah. So we'll get into that in exposure. So a lot of Mahomes lineups: Mahomes, MVS, Kelce, Travis Etienne bring back here. Low ownership again, 152%. And, you know, that kept her from having a bunch of dupes, obviously. So Mahomes +3, 2 bringbacks in that lineup. Trevor Lawrence +2, 2 bringbacks. That one was duplicated. Now, I like how she had a combination of different types of build. Some +3 with 2 bringbacks. This one was +2 with 2 bringbacks. Just different type of constructions to really keep her lineups from being duplicated heavily. So yeah, QB +2 and 1 bringback here. So it's just kind of all over the place. And I'm not sure if she ran different batches or set different rules for different quarterbacks. It doesn't appear to be the case. But, because we've seen Mahomes with QB +2 and +3. Lawrence +3, 1 bring back. Mahomes +2, 1 bring back. So, yeah, Lawrence +2, 2 bring back. So just get different with it. And I really think several different angles was really how she was able to build her lineups differently. So, with as far as lineup construction, a lot of different ways she attacked it. Ownership was heavy on Mahomes, which is crazy, and it kind of makes you wonder: had Mahomes had a better day, who knows? Might have been a better ROI, even a better ROI day. But would Joe Burrow have been in the nuts? Hard to say. So 76% exposure to Mahomes. And then Daniel Jones was the next closest. And this is just still crazy to me. 2% to Burrow. And that was the lineup that took it down. So crazy, crazy. Now, way over the field on ETN, double the field on Barkley, and then over on Pacheco and Mixon. So, Mixon had a great day. He was the top scoring back. Barkley didn't get there. But she also faded Christian McCaffrey, like full fade. That's the type of decision you have to make that really can make the difference. You have to take those hard stands on small slates and, a full fade of Christian McCaffrey. And he didn't get there. He was one of the top scoring backs, but, he didn't hit value. And, Mixon had the better day and he was 6,500 versus 8,000. So ended up working out for her. Now, she was also under on some of the more expensive wide receivers. So obviously 76% Mahomes, stacking with 2 or 3, you're going to have a lot of Juju, some MVS, bringbacks, of course, Marvin Jones, Christian Kirk. But under the field on Jamar Chase, way under on Tony, which is surprising considering how much Mahomes she had. And under on Gabe Davis, under on Stephon Diggs, and under on Deebo Samuel. But obviously going to probably pay up at the tight end position. Oh, there it is, Travis Kelce, 90% exposure, Travis Kelce. So, he's obviously a pay up tight end, priced like a wide receiver 1 almost. So 7,700. Little bit of Hayden Hurst. Well, triple the field on Hayden Hurst, and he had a great day by tight end standard. So certainly a lot of positive leverage there. And then over on Dalton Schultz. So, we look back at this. This is what we see a lot of double tight ends. Kelce, Hurst. A lot of Kelce and Hurst. Kelce and Goddard. Travis Kelce and Schultz. A lot of double tight ends. So great job on Megan Joy. And of course, that was not the last that we will review of her on this podcast. So another guy did quite well. That's Stunna. I don't think I've reviewed that Stunna this year, but pretty good as far as duplicates go. And, another positive ROI day. For some pros here, 6,600. So Trevor Lawrence was the top lineup. So Stunna had a lot of QB +2 and QB +3 as well. So Trevor Lawrence, Kirk, Zay Jones, and then double bring back. So Pacheco and Kelce. Mahomes, Juju, Kelce, and then 3 bringbacks, which is crazy. You would think QB plus 2 and 3 bringbacks, that's a good way to get unique. But 1, 2, 3 other people had that lineup on top of that Stunna. Let's look at overall. Yeah, a little higher than most of the Mega Joy lineups. So 182%. Lawrence plus 2 with 1 bringback. That one wasn't duplicated. Mahomes plus 1 and 2 bringbacks. 200%, but wasn't duplicated because you don't see the QB plus 1 with 2 bringbacks a whole lot. So that is definitely a way to differentiate this lineup. Christian McCaffrey and Tony Pollard in another stack. And then Richie James is a one-off. And Hayden Hurst and Cincy stack. QB plus 2, 2 bringbacks. So over on Josh Allen, about double the field. Over on Mahomes, Daniel Jones, Jalen Hurts. Played every quarterback, but really, it was 4 quarterbacks. 10%, 18%, 28, 22. Just under on Christian McCaffrey, and it looks like almost a full fade of Saquon Barkley at only 1%. So what I'm seeing here, playing a lot of different running backs. So 7 running backs over 20%. We got Jerick McKinnon, Miles Sanders, Christian McCaffrey, Travis Etienne, James Cook wasn't there, but over 10%. So Pollard, Mixon, and Pacheco. So wasn't too in love with the slate, and I get it. Saquon Barkley, the Giants, when they're projected to lose, he doesn't do very well. So totally understand the fade. Christian McCaffrey, he was now splitting with Elijah Mitchell. So obviously just being a little under the field there. Didn't love Christian McCaffrey on this slate, but also didn't want to get burned by him either. And he certainly has that ability. So took a hard stand on Barkley, just under the field on Christian McCaffrey. And then going to pay up for some wide receivers. So over on Lamb, over on Diggs, not a lot, but enough. Over on Chase. And then Christian Kirk, over on Juju, over on Richie James. Basically even on A.J. Brown, slightly over on Devonta, even on Ayuk, even on Zay Jones. About even on Gabe Davis. 2 fades here, Tony and Debo. 2 pretty big fades. And a healthy amount of Travis Kelce, but 33% of the field was on him, so it wasn't a high amount. And as we saw with Megan Joy, over on Hayden Hurst, almost triple the field. Really nothing that stands out as far as the exposures except the 1% to Barkley. And that's pretty much it. So one player I wanted to take a look at, and I haven't done it this year, but I continue to see Ricky D. I don't think I've covered Ricky D this year, but if I have, go ahead and mention it in the comments. Remind me. So Ricky D, this is a lineup that I have seen at the top of leaderboards a lot in showdowns, on main slates, full slates, you name it. So incredible year and just very impressive 148 lineups out of 150 that, were unique. So that's very hard to do. This is definitely a player who thinks about their lineup construction a lot for these type of slates, especially. So Daniel Jones, no one was really going to play Daniel Jones because we didn't really think it could happen again, right? And it didn't. But pretty wild that this ended up being the top lineup, Daniel Jones lineup with only 6 points. So Jones, Richie James, Dan Bellinger, and then not even a bring back going against the defense, really. So going against Philly D, total game stack, QB +2 with the opposing defense, 4-game slate stuff, right? Joe Mixon, Travis Etienne, CeeDee Lamb. So we have an Etienne, a Kirk, and a Kelsey stack as well. And then Mixon and Lamb as one-offs, 153%. So, this is kind of what we talk about with uniques, though, kind of going back to it. Not many people were playing this type of lineup, but at least it was unique. And, if it got there, no one else was going to have it. So Burrow, Mixon, Boyd with Gabe Davis, bring back. And, Burrow, Mixon, that was very popular on the day. I believe it took down the Mini Max. It took down the Milly Maker. So this is something that we wouldn't do this on a main slate. Burrow and Mixon, they're not going to correlate very well together. But on a smaller slate like this, you're not trying to score 250 points. It's going to be 200 points max. It's going to get it done. So that's essentially what we had. So you can do that with Mixon. And Gabe Davis bring back. Gabe Davis, obviously, very disappointing. The whole Bills offense. Etienne and Kelsey, another stack there. And then, yeah, that's it. So just some different lineup constructions. And then here we got Dak +2. And an Ayuk bring back. A lot of QB +1. I'm sorry, QB +2. Getting ahead of myself. That's the next person. So it didn't go too crazy with the stacks, QB +3, QB +4, just QB +2 and a bring back. Here it is again here. Lawrence, Etienne, Zay Jones, and we got Kelsey. Double tight end. Wish you didn't have Jacksonville D there. Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, Ayuk, CeeDee Lamb. 170%. Nobody had that lineup, of course. So, getting weird with it. And then another stack, MBS, Kelsey. So, exposures for Ricky D. Dak, 67%. So, pretty high on Dak. Spoiler alert, 67%, although really high, and 61% positive leverage. Not the highest exposure on the day. That's coming up next. And then everywhere else, obviously, you got 67% exposure to Dak. Everywhere else just kind of flat. So a little under on McCaffrey. Basically faded Sanders and McKinnon. Barkley just over the field. Pacheco. And Pacheco came in under owned as opposed to McKinnon, 35%. So good play there. Joe Mixon, that is where a lot of the positive ROI comes in from. So plus 15% on Joe Mixon. He had a great day. So certainly we'll take that. Now, 67% exposure to Dak. 86% exposure to CeeDee Lamb, who's 7,300. Definitely going to be under the field on a lot of these other guys. So the Debo under there, under on Gabe Davis, under on Diggs, of course. Gabe Davis was cheap, but yeah, Diggs, AJ Brown under there, slightly under on Chase. So yeah, kind of hard to afford all those other guys when you have that much exposure to CeeDee Lamb. Ayuk was cheap. Great bring back option at Dak stacks. Was over on Juju. Also getting some T.Y. Hilton in there in those Dak stacks. And then Travis Kelce. So Kelsey wasn't cheap either, 40% there over the field. A lot of Dalton Schultz to stack with Dak. So Schultz and Lamb are obviously the two primaries. Jacksonville, Philly, Buffalo. Those are the three big ones. Played all the defenses, though. So the next player, and I tweeted this out earlier today, and we are talking about it over in the Discord at DFS Army. Oh, by the way, if you're a DFS Army subscriber, you know about the Discord. I know several of you watched the show, of course. Hit that like button if you do. We appreciate it. If you're not a DFS Army subscriber, you have access to all this as we strategize. We talk about these things year-round, all the time. Use code FantasyFling for 10% off a VIP subscription. Obviously, it comes with the coach's notes, all the tools, the domination station, the chalkboard, all the good things that you need, and the Discord, where we just chat all the time, talking strategy. But anyways, I mentioned this, the whistles go woo. I have been following him on the podcast. Obviously, we talked about him as I've studied his strategy because he's one of the top 5 DFS pros in the world. And the whistles is not afraid to go all in on a quarterback, as we've seen time and time again. This time it was Dak Prescott, 100%. And this was mind-boggling to me because 100% Dak Prescott scored 12 points, and the whistles still had a positive ROI day, which is just crazy that happened. And, I was just kind of thinking how, so I started looking at his lineup and, obviously made all the right decisions with Dak and with the rest of the build, even though the Dak wasn't perfect. Also, there was a little bit of luck there, obviously, because it wasn't a high scoring quarterback slate. So Dak's 12 points really weren't that bad because Allen, Mahomes, Lawrence, Daniel Jones, and Brock Purdy were all under 20 points. So, there was no explosion with the other quarterbacks, and Dak only got 12 type thing. So was able to be positive ROI day. I will say, though, that when the whistles normally goes all in on a quarterback at 100% exposure, he's almost always right. The Russell Wilson week, which really stood out, having a horrible year, but whistles went 100% in on him on the week. I think he played Kansas City or Los Angeles or whatever it was, and Wilson smashed that week. So, and he had done it multiple times. He'd done it with Herbert and Trevor Lawrence, and he'd done it with Dak, actually, when Dak had his really good week. So very intuitive, normally very sharp. And even when it didn't hit, still kind of hit, right? This is a $3,700 entry fee contest, to MME it at $25 on this slate, and still had plus 2,400. Top lineup: Dak, CeeDee Lamb, and that's it. No bring back. Crazy. But Lamb smashed overall, in regards to the slate. So I believe he's the highest scoring wide receiver. And then you had Mixon, who did great. ETN, pretty good, 17 points. Obviously, you had Mixon, Hurst, and then a Gabe Davis stack. And, Hurst smashed as well. So really, and then you had Kelsey, too, in this lineup. So that was, I think, a big reason why the whistles, as we look through the lineups here, had a good day, because CeeDee Lamb and Travis Kelsey were in a lot of these lineups. So, right there, you got 60 points between these two, which is just fantastic between two players. So 172% total ownership, 160 points, which was 18 points out of first place. And, I was thinking about this too. I'm like, man, if Dak had just even a 25-point game, which wouldn't have been anything crazy for Dak. He scored over that this year. If he had thrown 2 less interceptions and, another 80 yards and a touchdown, we're talking about an awesome day for the whistles. So just being 18 points out of the Milly Maker winner. Dak, Lamb, Kelsey. So that was pretty much the staple of a lot of these top performing lineups. And, shout out to the Whistles for just being able to get very unique by going all in on Dak and doing the QB +1. Because really that's what it was. No, the force backs, there were no force bringbacks. And that lineup was just very unique. This is someone who clearly knows the field's going to do this. I'm going to do this. And if it hits, I'm going to win $1 million. No one else is going to be doing this. 148 out of 150 were unique on a 4-game slate. That's just incredible. So Dak, Lamb, Christian McCaffrey there. So, the bringbacks were there, but they weren't forced, as we saw with the lineup prior. Sometimes they were there, sometimes they weren't, as we see here. Dak plus Lamb. So we saw the quarterback exposure, of course. And running back. So over on ETN, over on Saquon, and over on Christian McCaffrey. And, if you start thinking about lineup construction and strategic fades and all that, and how can your lineup get different, you're not having to play that same game of should I fade Christian McCaffrey? Should I fade Saquon Barkley? When you're playing Dak, who's only 6% owned, and you got 100% exposure to him, right? That type of thing. QB +1 when everyone's playing QB +2, QB +3, like your lineup is already so different in your construction by locking in one quarterback and doing QB +1 that, you can eat all this chalk if you want. So Joe Mixon over the field as well. Under on Sanders, under on Jerick McKinnon. CeeDee Lamb. Over there, surprises not more actually with all the Dak, but it was only +1. And so you got 34% CeeDee Lamb, 12% Hilton, 18% Gallup. And then we're obviously going to have some Schultz as well. And yeah, on the wide receivers, nothing too high. So CeeDee Lamb was the highest. You got Diggs, 26%. Richie James, just under 20. And then even with the field on Kirk, just under on AJ, just under on Chase. Debo, even under on Debo, 20%. And of course, we're going to have a good amount of Schultz, 38% Schultz. Quite a bit. Travis Kelce, too. So as you can see here, I've talked about this several times on the show. You're going to have multiple tight ends over 20%. You're going to have a lot of double tight end builds, which on a slate like this, we want it. We want all the double tight end builds. So basically 100%. That's what we like. So Buffalo D, way over the field there on Philly, over the field quite a bit, and then just over the field on KC. And then, just minimal amounts there. And then Cincy D, decent amount, but under the field. So good for the Whistles. I think looking at some other lineups, the Whistles definitely won some other large field GPPs. Just wasn't the Milly Maker this week, but still had a great day at the Milly Maker nonetheless. So before I finish, we are going to look at some top DFS pros and their 2-game strategy. So we're going to look at the Saturday slate. I believe this was it. This always happens. Fantasy Labs, it can be buggy. We're trying to look at this one. 2 games Saturday is what we're trying to look at. So Megan Joy, once again, smashing it. And, what I like to look at this 2-game is their strategy, of course, for the 2-game slates and, how they're going to attack it. So obviously it's going to be different than for most people than it would be for a 4-game slate. And obviously the exposures are going to be way higher. So it's much harder to get unique in a 2-game slate versus a 4-game slate. In most of the pros that I was looking at, I mean, I'm talking top pros, like their lineups are duplicated so many times. Like one of them, like they only had like 20% of their lineups were actually unique. And I'm just like, why are you even playing? Like if you're going to do that. So I like to look at, what these pros are doing different specifically because their lineups are quite a bit more unique than most of the field. So Megan Joy, she obviously took down the Milly Maker. She had a great week overall. And this was a Saturday slate, and she did well on this too. So positive ROI day. It was hard to find a DFS pro who had a positive ROI day, but she certainly did. So she had Patrick Mahomes here, +2, and then 2 bringbacks, of course. So she had quite a few lineups under 300%, but also some between like 300 to 350. And, once you start getting in the 310 plus, you run into a lot of duplicates, but she was still able to keep her lineup constructions different enough that she didn't have too many of those issues. So Jalen Hurts and quite a few Jalen Hurts lineups. So Hurts, Watkins, Goddard, and Philly D. Mahomes, Pacheco, Tony, MBS, Kelsey. So Mahomes, 1, 2, 3, 4, +2 bringbacks. So really getting weird with it, right? So we're going to just heavy on one game, and then we just have a Dallas Goddard and Philly D. So even though this was over 300% total ownership, this lineup was very unique. Quarterback +4 and 2 bringbacks, and then another stack. So love it. Really thinking about how to get different here. Trevor, and another thing about that, this would be probably if Mahomes doesn't get hurt. First off, Chad Henne threw a touchdown. They would have went to Mahomes. Mahomes was just very immobile, obviously. The fact that he even came back and played was awesome. Mahomes could have had a way better day. I was way over the field on him, and we're talking about a much better day for her if he doesn't get hurt. And that's just kind of how it goes playing DFS. Being over the field on Mahomes is always a good thing when he's healthy, for sure. So Lawrence, ETN, so 1, 2, 3, and then Pacheco and Kelsey and Juju bring back. So three bring backs, Goddard, Philly. It's crazy. Now we have 2 duplicates, right? Just that playing the other side of that, the Trevor Lawrence side, +3 with 3 bringbacks. It's just crazy that it was duplicated like that so quickly when you just changed one thing. Lawrence +3 +2 bringbacks, not duplicated. Richie James, getting Richie James in here. Philly D, and I think a lot of it too was just the defense. Like it's really hard to get different when everyone's playing a 35% defense. So you tend to get a lot of the same builds of the fields, just trying to Tetris all these pieces in together. So played a lot of Philly D as well. Mahomes +2 this time, 3 bringbacks. So, and that's a different type of construction. That is basically what we saw take down the Milly in, I believe it was week 4 when we had the Detroit Lions versus the Seattle Seahawks. And I believe it was like Goff +2, and then it was 3 Seattle bringbacks. So that's a type of construction most people aren't going to be on. So it's pretty awesome to see, even though she still had 325% total ownership, nowhere near, the lowest she had on the day. This lineup wasn't duplicated just because it was so different. QB +2 or 3 bringbacks. So when we start getting into her exposures, she was heavy on Mahomes. Like I said, this is probably, maybe 1,000, 2,000 positive ROI day. in this regard if, Mahomes plays the full game, doesn't get hurt, isn't limited. So Trevor Lawrence, Jalen Hurts, and then, faded Hurts, and then we just unfriended Daniel Jones. I unfriend you. So now another thing here, and specifically on these 2-game slate, like as I was saying, it takes a lot of guts to fade, like in that 4-game slate, fading Christian McCaffrey. This 2-game slate, like, no, I'm not playing Christian McCaffrey or Saquon Barkley, actually. Just completely fading. This is how I'll get positive leverage. And again, if Mahomes played the full game and was healthy, not immobile, who knows? So gutsy phase, it totally worked out, obviously. And Isaiah Pacheco, no, I'm trying to think. Christian McCaffrey, they played Sunday. Okay. She definitely, so they weren't on this slate, but Saquon Barkley was on the slate and full faded Saquon. So Miles Sanders was over the field there. Would have loved to have had a lot more Kenneth Gainwell. Shout out to Bobby Millions, DFS Army. He was on Gainwell. I believe that he mentioned that. I know he also mentioned Perrine. But yeah, that was a great play. Just Miles Sanders, even though he got 90 yards, he just doesn't get the touchdowns. So it just always caps his upside. Unless he breaks a long one, that's the only way he gets touchdowns because he doesn't get the goal line carries. It's so maddening. ETN over the field on ETN, and then get full fade of Saquon. Going to play Richie James, direct leverage. Not playing Saquon. Going to play Richie James. Going to play Darius Slayton. Obviously, a lot of Mahomes going to play Juju, MVS, some Marvin Jones, some Christian Kirk, because there was a lot of bringbacks, +2, +3, Zay Jones. And then under on A.J. Brown. So faded Saquon, faded A.J. Brown, pretty much faded Devonta Smith too. So just trying to get the players that most of the field wasn't going to be on and just being way over the field on those players. And then Travis Kelce, wow, 96%. So taking stands in the stands worked. Kelce had a smash game. So yeah, that's all the positive leverage you really needed right there. A lot of Philly D. Over 20% plus positive leverage there. KC under. So we're going to finish this out. DFS Army Zone, the Sharp app, Sassational, killing it again. I look at Sassational's lineups and I'm like, I don't know how he does it. This dude is a genius. He's like a mad scientist because when we start looking at his exposures, he doesn't like go all in on really anybody. He's like slightly over the field here, slightly under the field here. Like it's very hard to find trends of what he does except just being slightly over, slightly under, never too high on anyone. And he consistently wins tournaments or comes in the top 5, like wins big, wins a lot of money. He's one of the GOATs. And if you're a DFS Army subscriber, you know this. So Jalen Hurts. And what I love about this breakdown is we have Megan Joy, who she's like, I'm going to be 85% Patrick Mahomes. I'm going to completely fade Saquon Barkley. I'm going to fade A.J. Brown. And then we have Sassational, and they're two completely different strategies, and they both work. So that's what I love about just looking at these two is just like there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, right? This was awesome. So Jalen Hurts, 36%. He was over the field there. Daniel Jones, basically even. And then under on Mahomes and slightly under on Trevor Lawrence. So again, you look at here and you're like, nothing really stands out. Nothing too crazy. A little over on Saquon. Not a lot. A good amount. Kenneth Gainwell, though. So finding that one player who only 2% of the field is on and just getting enough positive leverage there, right? Travis Etienne over. Travis Etienne had a good day. I think he scored like 17 points. Isaiah Pacheco, just under on Sanders. And obviously, Sassational, very sharp, though. Yeah, Sanders may get a bunch of yards, but he's not going to get the touchdowns. So I'm going to be under there, but I'm going to be over on Gainwell, who had a better day. So under on Jerick McKinnon. Slayton, little over there. Little over on Devonta Smith. He had a good day. Decent day. Not great day, decent. Marvin Jones, MBS. Little over on AJ. Juju as well. Slightly under on Kirk, Zay, and Tony. So it's just like, again, slightly under, slightly over. No one is too crazy. And he actually faded Kelsey. He didn't fade him, but he was under on Kelsey by like 11% and still took second in this tournament in, 38,000. Just crazy. Positive ROI. Let's look at some of his lineups. The top one that got it done. And going through his lineups, what I love about this, and, this is something that we'll have to ask Sassational in the Discord, because I've seen his lineups, on a regular slate. There might be QB +1, and then, he might have some QB +2, but doesn't get too crazy with the sacking. But here, they were all over. So some were like here, Hurts, Gainwell, Smith, Goddard. So that's QB +3, 4 if you include the defense. And then some were just like QB +2, QB +1. So it was just very different, but a lot of unique lineups. Under 300% here. And he did have a lot of lineups under 300%. So Hurts +3, 4, 2 bringbacks. Mahomes +3, 1, 2, 3, 4 bringbacks. Crazy. And then here, Hurts +2, 2 bringbacks. Hurts plus, and then playing, it takes a lot of balls to play 2 backup running backs in the same lineup. Like, I'm going to fade Miles Sanders. I'm going to play Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell with A.J. Brown and Philly D. 274%. No one's doing that, right? Unique lineup. No bring back. So he just went a lot of different ways with it. 1, 2, 3, 4. QB +4. 1 bring back. There was a QB +5 lineup in here. I want to find it. There it is. Hurts, Scott, Gainwell, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Philly D. Nobody had this lineup. 243%. So, awesome. Just so many different lineup constructions. And then here you got QB +1. So, that's why he's one of the GOATs. Shout out to Sassational, JBC. And I think that is going to do it for this week. Best of luck in the conference championship, of course. I'll be back next week reviewing that. We got the tournament tactics coming up on Friday. How to attack the slate. I mean, every week, Bobby Wow and the crew, they're giving you the plays that are ending up in the nuts, and the top DFS pros are all over. So you definitely want to check it out. If you are a DFS Army subscriber, this is something you have access to each and every week. If you like this kind of content, please hit the like button, leave a comment, hit the notification button so you don't miss an episode when we go live, specifically for tournament tactics. I wish you all the best of luck this week. And of course, we will see you back next week. Let's go ahead and bank one. Let's do it.